some challenging ideas with his own interpretation of things, which is quite interesting. I think that should help us to think about those matters. The second speaker in this opening session is an American academic who's been all over the place in the United States, in many states, Kansas, Illinois, I think, and other places. And he has a large international experience. He's been in all Central Asian countries, Liberia, Afghanistan. Currently, he holds the position of the Chief of Party for the Palestinian Faculty Development Program at the Amid East. It's Dr. John Knight. The stage is yours.
I'd like to begin with an essential question that relates to all of our learning centers and to this conference. And the question is very simple. How do university professors learn to teach? Dominantly, we learn to teach by watching the people who taught us, unless we go through an education program that helps teach us how to teach. But dominantly, university teachers are professors, and we love to profess. We are the repository of knowledge, and we need to convey this knowledge to our students, because without that knowledge, they'll never be learning. Well, let's rephrase the question. Is professing learning? I want to tell you a little story. The first time I ever taught was in the first year of graduate school. I was given a teaching assistantship to teach an English composition course. First year students, first course, everybody had to take it. So obviously they were going to be terribly interested, and they were forced to be there. And so I was mentored by one of the senior faculty members, who in this case was in charge of the writing program. And he was a very good teacher, been recognized repeatedly in the university for his teaching excellence. And Don Costello said, "John, I need to come in and watch you teach." Wow, this is my chance to impress this guy. So I spent hours working up this very impressive lecture. And Don Costello came into my class, and I presented this lecture on how to write. He said after class, "Make an appointment with me, come in, let's talk about this." So about 2 days later, I was in his office, and he said, "John, that was a really impressive presentation." And I sat there and thought, "Oh, wow, you know, this is really good." And then he said, "But that was terrible teaching." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Were your students learning how to write while you were lecturing them on how to write? Why weren't they writing?" And it occurred to me, I had never questioned the way I had learned to teach. My professors had lectured at me, and I thought this is the way that we learn. A couple of years later, I was lucky enough to get a grant with a guy named Roger Garrison, who spent 3 months in Maine. And Roger Garrison was an expert on teaching writing. And Roger Garrison said, "Your writing class should be an art studio course. Your students should be writing every day, and you should be involved in the creative process of their writing by walking around the room, interrupting them occasionally, helping make very pointed comments about the theme they were writing, or the coherence of the writing, or the lack of something, but not grammar, not punctuation. That comes at the end. That's the editing process. That's the proofreading process. That's not the writing process." And it totally changed, again, the way I went about teaching. Global education research pretty consistently demonstrates over and over that traditional teaching methods fail to motivate students, especially the current generation of students that you and I all see glued to their iPhones and their tablets. I took some of your speakers this weekend to Taipei and up to the church, and we looked at it, and there were a few little placards of information, and that was very interesting. And I'd been there about 3 times, and so I read a little bit about it. And then I went back home last night and got on the internet and got on Wikipedia. There are about 8 pages of research-based information on Taipei. Why would I want to tell my students about Taipei and take up that class time when I could be using critical thinking, problem-solving methods, engaging my students in the learning process, to just tell them information that they can get more efficiently online? and incidentally, much better pictures than I can take. In 2013, Michael Fuller wrote a book called Stratosphere, Integrating Technology, Pedagogy, and Change Knowledge. And he observes students today often hate school because they learn very differently than the way school teaches them. They leverage their love of social networking to create educational tools built around them. Philip Schlechte, in his 2011 book, Engaging Students the Next Level of Working on the Work, explained, quote, learning is all about purposeful engagement. The engaged student is attentive, committed, persistent, and finds meaning and value in the tasks of his study. From this research, Michael Fullen observes, by contrast, in all of the successful examples of learning, the students talk of doing things that are meaningful in the world, projects that focus on solving a problem, engaging in teamwork, and operating under conditions that encourage risk-taking, encourage making mistakes as part of the learning process, and we often punish mistakes in the schools. The new pedagogy involves helping students find purpose and passion and experimental doing in a domain that stokes their desire to learn and to keep on learning. End quote. Microsoft, in an international project called Innovative Teaching and Learning in 2011, reported that there are innovative teachers, but not many innovative schools, and there are no innovative school systems. Let's hope that's changed in the 3 years since that report came out. In Imagine How Creativity Works, Jonah Lehrer defines creativity as the ability to imagine what has never existed. Think of Apple's Steve Jobs. For all of his problems, and if you read his biography, you'll find a lot of personal problems for Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs' central idea throughout his entire career was, let us help create something that the user does not even know he needs yet. To create something that will serve a future need in consumers that they don't even know about today. Michael Fullen points out leadership and teaching must be provocative in the sense of helping other people create a world they do not yet know that they want. The same proposition that drove Steve Jobs all his career. The central concept behind TTUK Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning is, how do our students learn and how do we teach our students differently in the 21st century than we did in the 20th century? Or are we going to just tinker with the 20th century learning methods? Fullen insists that most educational systems worldwide are not asking how are our students learning differently, but only how can we adjust 20th century learning techniques. This conference and all of the professional faculty development program centers are asking the essential questions. How are our students and how do our students need to learn in the 21st century? How does technology become a part of that learning process? How do we learn to teach to the creativity and the learning modes of our students, given the amazing effects of technology and the access to information and knowledge? Those of you in front of students, as I was for 15 years as a professor, professing often, and less as I learned to teach differently, need to ask ourselves, is that how we teach today? Is this a vision of education that your students embrace? And perhaps even more importantly, are 21st century teachers, professors, even aware of these critical, essential learning questions? The challenge for all of us is not just to recognize the changes that need to be made, but to be a part of making those changes happen. The Palestinian Faculty Development Program is proud to support this kind of an effort as we look to ask the questions, how do we help our students become an essential part of the future of Palestine, to contribute to its economy, to help our own children be part of an even better world, and how do we help that happen in effective learning and teaching? Thank you very much.